Hello everyone, this is Juxtaposition. Today's video will be part 2 of the Dead Poets Society. And of course, when I use the word poet, I'm referring to a person who possesses special powers of imagination or expression. And I have 27 murder most foul homicides to report to you. Believe me, I can balloon this list up into the hundreds, but I'm not going to. I got 27 that have occurred more or less over the last 53 years. All right. In no particular chronological order, it's too much of a work for me to do it in a chronological order, but I think we can kick the thing off sort of kind of with the... I've already covered Judy Garland in part 1. She actually went first. Or maybe you could say Frank Olson went first in 1953, but he's New York. So in terms of Los Angeles, Judy Garland, who's really a Los Angeles MGM Metro Goldwyn Mayer product, she was murdered in merry old London, England, right? In 1969, just before Sharon Tate was murdered in Benedict Canyon, Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, 90210. Zip code. So anyway, we're going to kick it off with Sharon Tate. Her murder was August 9th, 1969. She was murdered by NATO forces, military intelligence, on a porn set known as Cielo Drive, which is really Sunbrook Drive, Bella Drive, Angelo View Drives. It's also known as 10048 Cielo Drive, Doppelganger Evil Twin Home, where the murderers could rehearse, practice, and clean up from the actual bayonet attacks. And I'm saying there were a minimum of 4 teams of 3, which is 12 men armed with the M7 bayonet, the M7 military bayonet, which would have been attached to, using this attachment device, to the M16 rifle. And we know that's true because they discharged an M16 rifle 7 times on the Sharon Tate murder scene. They shot Stephen Parent, age 18, 4 times, killing him. They stabbed him 1 time only with the M7 in his left wrist, taking out his wristwatch, but not harming him otherwise. Put a cut in his left arm. But he was killed by the M16 bullets. Then Voytek Frykowski, the Polish Jewish man, friends with Jerzy Kaczynski, who was murdered in New York years later, and friends with Roman Polanski. He was shot twice with the M16 rifle and bayoneted 51 times with the M7. Tom Kummer, J. Sebring, was shot once with the M16 rifle, bayoneted 7 times with the M7. I'm not going to count them. I'm only going to count Sharon Tate. I'm not even going to count Abigail Folger. Well, yeah, I guess I will. I will count Abigail Folger because she was 25 years old. She was a private banker who wanted to quit. Sharon Tate was an actress who wanted to quit. She was pregnant. She didn't want to renew her contract. She just expired her 7-year contract. Well, it hadn't expired yet, but it was expiring on December 31st, 1969. It should have been renewed and signed by January 1969. So you see, she's way over past her patience date with clandestine services. Both Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger's parents worked for CIA. So they got into the business. They were born into it. It was through no fault of their own. They didn't volunteer. In fact, everybody on my list, nobody volunteered to work for CIA. They're all conscripted. John Kennedy told us that. It's conscription. You are conscripted into service. And either you or your children or your wives will be murdered if you don't obey under maritime law. All right, so we got Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger. Those are 2 killed in Benedict Canyon. Then I got, let's go up to San Francisco. Let's follow Sharon Tate's father, who's working at the Presidio Army Base, adjacent to Presidio Heights residential area. And let's follow Abigail Folger's mother, Enos Mejia, who is the banker for this HAP, Haight Ashbury Project, ARP, Amphetamines Research Project, Operation Midnight Climax, Operation Sea Spray, and dozens of other CIA projects, including free concerts with Bill Graham. All those people have to get paid and have to go through Abigail Folger's mother to get their expense accounts or their stipends reimbursed. That includes Timothy Leary. That includes Sharon Tate's father, Paul Tate. That includes Hunter S. Thompson. That would include Ken Kesey. That would include Bill Graham, whose real name is Wulf Grajonca, again from the Bronx, a Russian Jewish person from Berlin who found himself in the Bronx before he's assigned to Haight-Ashbury Project, CIA, San Francisco. Harvey Milk, he's involved with CIA operations in the 70s on Castro Street, setting up a camera retail store where he gets to live above the store. He becomes a city council member for the CIA city of San Francisco, along with Mayor George Moscone and Diane Goldman Feinstein. And Jimmy Jones rolls into town and he becomes the commissioner for the Housing Authority of San Francisco. And he's also the foreman of the grand jury of Mendocino County. Jim Jones from University of Indiana. Jim Jones, People's Temple Jim Jones. Yeah, that Jim Jones. He's a big shot. Ronald Reagan wrote Jim Jones a wonderful letter praising him for his civic contributions to the San Francisco Bay Area. Jim Jones. Leo Ryan, the fake congressman. Leo Ryan, the mayor of South San Francisco. Leo Ryan was the mayor of South San Francisco, which is home to Genentech, which is brought to you by Eugene Kleiner, a CIA banker. He's home to the Holy Cross Catholic cemeteries. You know, South San Francisco is mostly a series of cemeteries and bioweapons laboratories. Life Sciences, that's what it's called now. And home to the Cow Palace, where Van Halen performed. All right, so Leo Ryan, killed in the British intelligence jungles of Guyana, British Guyana, on Union Carbide property, with Jim Jones, CIA, sponsored People's Temple Agricultural Project. Leo Ryan put down. Leo Ryan works for CIA. Jim Jones works for CIA. George Moscone, the mayor of San Francisco, works for CIA. Harvey Milk from Long Island, New York, he works for CIA. Bill Graham, he works for CIA. They all work for the Haight-Ashbury Project in San Francisco also. And they were all murdered. In the case of Harvey Milk and George Moscone, they were married in City Hall, right at the top of the steps from where Nancy Pelosi presides over weddings of the Gordon Getty family. Ivy Getty, she got married right down the staircase from where George Moscone and Harvey Milk were murdered in City Hall. I mean, what a romantic wedding that is. And they didn't have to wear their face diapers, so they could kiss. You could kiss the bride, right? Because there was no face diapers at the Nancy Pelosi wedding when everyone in San Francisco was required to wear face diapers. But Nancy Pelosi is not wearing her face diaper, and neither is the bride, Ivy Getty. Ivy Getty, whose family that founded the Getty Museum in Los Angeles. All right, so anyway, Leo Ryan, Jim Jones, George Moscone, Harvey Milk, Bill Graham, they were all murdered, and they were all associated with the Haight-Ashbury Project in San Francisco. That's 5. Leo Ryan, Jim Jones, George Moscone, Bill Graham, Leo Ryan, Jim Jones, George Moscone, Harvey Milk, Bill Graham, that's 5, and George Sullivan, who was murdered on August 2nd, 1966, to free up the Filmore auditoriums for Bill Graham to host his rock concerts from all those Warner Brothers and Columbia Records bands, you know, like Jefferson Airplane and Grateful Dead, right? And George Harrison and Janis Joplin. Janis Joplin was Columbia Records. So she performed at the Filmore Auditorium after they murdered George Sullivan to free up the Summer of Love concert series. That's 6 people associated, I mean, not counting Janis Joplin. I got 6 people dead from the Haight-Ashbury Project many of them got killed in rapid fire. Jim Jones was killed supposedly on November 18th, 1978, which is approximately when Leo Ryan was killed, the mayor of South San Francisco, and fake congressman who needed CIA clearances to get onto that CIA property, right? Anyway, so those two got killed in theory on the same day. I doubt they got killed on the same day, but they got killed around November 18th, 1978. Then the next week we had George Moscone and Harvey Milk were both murdered on the 27th of November 1978. So that's 4 people murdered within 10 days of each other. Then we had Bill Graham was murdered October 25th, 1991 at Sonoma Creek in a Bell 206B helicopter, the exact make and model helicopter used by Francis Gary Powers, who was murdered on August 1st, 1977 in San Fernando Porn City Valley of Hollywood at the Sepulveda Dam Reservoir. I'm not counting Gary Powers, who worked for Lockheed spy program, CIA. I'm not going to count him. So I'm excluding him from my 27 homicides. But Bill Graham was killed near an Air Force radio frequency center, which I believe is active today, and his helicopter crashed within 350 meters of that radio frequency switching station known as Skaggs Wetlands area adjacent to Sonoma Creek on Highway 37. It's about 300 yards away from his helicopter crash. So I believe that that was a deliberate on purpose murder of Bill Graham, his fiancee, and the pilot. 3 people murdered. I'm only going to count Bill Graham, who was heading back to Corte Madera to go home after Huey Lewis and the News performed at the Concord Pavilion. Again, that was on October 25th, 1991. Then I had the murder of Clay Shaw in New Orleans. He was the head of the trademark port facility of New Orleans, which involved Carlos Marcello, involved David Ferry, Guy Banister, Lee Harvey Oswald, and a whole cast of characters associated with the Process Church, and lawyers and media people, and Jim Garrison, all in the Port Authority, Jefferson Parish, New Orleans. Clay Shaw, killed at age 61. 61 years old of a so-called cancer, lung cancer, heart attack. Then I got William Egan Colby done away with in his kitchen at Rock Point, Maryland on April 27, 1996, age 76. So that's not a West Coast murder, but it happened in close proximity to some other bizarre activities involving Oliver Stone, where he goes and visits Timothy Leary at the Sharon Tate Abigail Folger murder scene at 10106 Sunbrook Drive. Again, that occurs in St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, 1996, which is just a month before William Colby, who's the former director of CIA, he gets whacked a month after Oliver Stone visits Timothy Leary. And Timothy Leary is complete CIA. That makes Oliver Stone CIA, and that makes all of his films, The Doors, that makes Platoon, JFK, all CIA films, all CIA-approved films. Oliver Stone hasn't produced a single product that wasn't CIA endorsed, edited, and approved. He doesn't have Final Cut. CIA has Final Cut. CIA Hollywood runs the film business, not Oliver Silverstein, who changed his name to Stone and became a Buddhist to psych you out. All right. So we have William Colby getting killed. We got Clay Shaw getting done away with. We got Hunter S. Thompson, who's being killed 9 miles out of Aspen, Colorado. He's done away with February 20th, 2005 at age 67. He was a big part of the Haight-Ashbury Project and the Hells Angels with Sonny Barger, where he had to harass those guys to write fake so-called gonzo journalism articles. We got George de Mohrenschildt done away with on March 29th, 1977 in Palm Beach, Florida, about 9 miles south of the Breakers Hotel. We've got Dr. Victor Ohta done away with in Santa Cruz, in Santa Cruz County, Soquel, at 999 North Rodeo Gulch Road in a Frank Lloyd Wright custom home with a swimming pool when almost no homes have swimming pools in this area. And he's 46 years old. He's a medical doctor, optometrist. His entire family, minus his 2 daughters who weren't present, his wife, his 2 sons, and his receptionist were all murdered by 38 caliber pistols and then tossed into the pool, along with his kitty cat, who was shot and thrown into the pool. And that was on October 19th, 1970, as the so-called Manson family trial was in session. Dr. Victor Ohta was murdered in Santa Cruz County. Huey Newton, the former president of the Black Panthers, he was murdered on August 22nd, 1989 at age 47. That was 2 days after Jose Menendez was murdered in a home that he didn't live in at 722 North Elm Drive, the Nightmare on Elm Street, North Elm Drive. Jose Menendez was murdered by professional killers on or around 10 p.m. at night on August 20th, 1989, by professional murderers in Beverly Hills, 90210. Don't forget, Jose Menendez was building a 9,000 square foot home in Calabasas, Hidden Hills, which is, 20 miles north, and in closer to his office in the porn center, which would be Canoga Park and Van Nuys, because Jose Menendez had offices in Van Nuys and Canoga Park at the time of his death. He also had an office in Newbury Park, which again is very far away from Beverly Hills, but very close to Calabasas. So he was lured into that home under false pretexts, and he was murdered in that home. It's a CIA home. It's home to Elton John. It was home to Prince, the actor, singer, formerly known as Prince. It was home to Michael Jackson. And so it was home to William Link of Columbo television series. After they cleaned up the mess from Kitty and Jose Menendez, it was assigned to William Link of Columbo. It's a fake house. Natalie Wood was murdered at age 43 on November 29, 1981 in Santa Catalina Island. Drowned, thrown into the water like a sack of potatoes. Robert Wagner was there. Christopher Walken was present. He was 39 years old. He was there. The captain of the Splendor. The Splendor was there. All right. Paul Stine, the taxi driver, yellow cab taxi driver, murdered at age 29 in Presidio Heights in close proximity to Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein, who were living in that same neighborhood, on October 11th, 1969. He was shot once in the head with a 9mm Luger semi-automatic pistol. He worked for a Haight-Ashbury Project CIA. The cab driver was a CIA operative. He lived on Fell Street, 2 blocks from Enos Mejia's office at the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. Paul Stine was across the street from the freight. That's where he could get his expense account reimbursed. Meredith Hunter, who was the 18-year-old black boy wearing a Dumb and Dumber tuxedo, he's bayoneted on December 6, 1969, and he's videotaped by none other than George Lucas of Star Wars, who's 24 years old, filming, the Altamont free concert, which was promoted by Bill Graham, but Bill Graham isn't present, and we all know Bill Graham's real name is Wulf Grajonca. It's not Bill Graham. All right, then we have Marshall Applewhite. You may not remember him. Maybe you've heard of the Heaven's Gate cult church. Heaven's Gate. I'm not talking about Process Church. I'm not talking about the Church of Synanon. I'm not talking about Scientology. I'm talking about Heaven's Gate. You may know Marshall Applewhite as Doe. Doe. He was the leader of the Heaven's Gate cult. And they were all murdered. He was 65 years old, and with his cohorts wearing tennis shoes, died in their beds in Rancho Santa Fe. Let me tell you something. That's a really expensive part of San Diego County. It's near La Jolla. Rancho Santa Fe is very expensive. So somebody sponsored Doe and the Heaven's Gate cult. That's a CIA operation. It was presented to you on television, and that happened in San Diego County. So let me add up all these murders. I got Leo Ryan, Jimmy Jones, George Moscone, Harvey Milk,